Hello. I I just spoke about the seventh ayahuasca ceremony that I attended, and now I want to talk about how my eighth ceremony went, which was the night directly after the seventh. This was the night of November the 11th, and ceremony eighth. hmm So what happened was that, as I said, for the seventh ceremony, um, I had fasted, and then I had a purge during that that the seventh ceremony. And so for the eighth ceremony, I did eat during the day, and I felt very good about it. Like, I fed my body again during the day, and then something unexpected happened right before, not right before, but a few hours before the eighth ceremony, and that was that a woman came up to me, one of the people who manage the place where these ceremonies are being held, and I and she came over to me as I was sitting by the fire, and she said that she had heard that I was dancing in the ceremony, and to me it felt like, yep, I was dancing. And she came over to me and she said, ayahuasca ceremonies are not to be danced. You're not supposed to dance in the ceremonies. It's a time of introspection. If you're going to dance, you shouldn't go into the ceremonies anymore. It caught me by surprise. Yeah, I just went like, what? What the heck, woman? Is what I was thinking. Why are you telling me what to do? Why are you coming into the very personal experience that the ayahuasca trip is? She said that in a way I was disrespecting the space and the ceremony by doing that. And to me, I didn't really feel like that at all. Because the expression of movement and of dance that my body was doing, it felt celebratory and sacred. It felt like it was an honoring of the everything that was around me. I did not intentionally disrespect anyone. I held everyone in very in esteem and respect, I felt. And so her coming to me and telling me what not to do during the ceremony, and that what I had done, which to me felt beautiful, was wrong. It felt like an attack on me, like an attack on my own experience, as in your experience was wrong. And it caught me by surprise, and I argued a little bit about it. But I also realized, I also thought, I also considered the possibility that this information coming to me was of value. And so I acknowledged it, and I took it for me, and for the ceremony, I thought about it, and I did realize that if I allow the energy to exit through my body and to move in other directions, there was perhaps less energy for me to focus in the realms of inner insights. And so for that night, I went into the ceremony and I took ayahuasca, and I was in my mattress, and for a while I wasn't really feeling many psychedelic effects, which sometimes I come to expect. And my intention really was not very clear, as I mentioned in the last video. It was a bit murky exactly why I was there. I'm not sure why I'm here, but I'm here. And so I guess let's do this. Let's do what is happening around me. During that night, the music actually resonated a lot with me, and it made my body want to move up, and it was beginning to move up. And I remembered what the woman told me, and that she had said, "Hey, consider the energy being dissipated when you go out and express it through dance and through movement." So I did that, and I stayed within myself. The second night, this 8th ayahuasca ceremony for me was very connected to the music, very connected to the sequence of musical tracks that we're going through. And in particular, there was one where there was a man in the song, and he was chanting in a tribal style. And the music around it was not tribal, but there were some synthesizers that seemed like violins and some piano. It was like soft and epic, and it went in waves of intensity. It came and went. And as I was laying in the mattress and I was listening to this music, this voice sounding out, something like that, it resonated with me. Something resonated with me. And what began to strike me was like a call to my wild origins, if I would put it that way. It felt like the music was calling me to remember the wild origins of my being, of the origins that my body has been through, where it has come from my family, my parents who gave birth to this body, allowed this body to come out into the world and be its own being, and where their bodies came from, and they come from their families, and their families come from their further past families, and so on and so forth. And that voice seemed to call back to me that feeling, that origin, that question and feeling of where I come from. Like where this matter, this vehicle that I'm using, where does it come from? What is its origin? What is its root? And my mind began to travel back and back and back and feel like where in the past did it come from? And I began to feel connected with tribes, small groups of people moving along in the wilderness and being hungry and being thirsty and coordinating with other people for survival and helping each other, because I found food but I found shelter, so let's trade. And like a very primal feeling of survival. That's what I was feeling, experiencing. Like, I wouldn't say that I actually had a vision of me being one of those people, but it truly felt like I felt there. The feeling of being there. That mixture of alertness and anxiety and alertness, readiness to do anything to survive, like being at the edge of survival each day after day after day, and having that be the daily livelihood. And the joys that success brings, that each step of success brings. And also I felt the the joyful substance of community, of being able to connect with one another, and to feel the connectedness, and to realize, hey, you are just another person who's trying to survive, and that being like the glue that holds people together. That music brought that out in me, that feeling. And in a way, I began feeling the sacredness of all that, of that origin, the sacredness of our history, and of our pains and of our sufferings, of the sufferings of our ancestors. Of their joys. And in a way, of all of their success being reflected, being manifested in my being. I continue their legacy across the world. That felt like an honor. Like, I continue their legacy. It is an honor to continue their legacy and to continue here in the world, bearing the fruit of all their efforts, and my efforts, just as my efforts at some point will bear fruit that I have no idea about. That felt so very connective, I will say. Like sometimes in life, I feel that many of us people we lose purpose, we lose direction, and we lose the idea of who we are. What are we doing? Why are we immersed in all of this? And there's a certain rejection that comes up about everything. I'm like, no, I don't want any of this. Can you just leave me alone? Can you just get out? Can you just let me get out of life? There's the feeling that I have felt, and I think that probably many others have felt as well. And when I felt this connectivity with my past, with the past of this body, the origins, the ancestral origins that have borne this fruit, there was no such feeling of disconnection or of rejection of life. It just felt like an honor of, I'm alive. I'm alive, and my actions are the fruits of my ancestors. And all of what I do is a gift from my ancestors to the world, and a gift that I also provide, and everything, all the joys that I feel, and all the connections, and all of the actions, my engagements with the world, they are a continuous gift to me. And through me, they continue to flow through the rest of the world. And that feeling was fulfilling. sometimes one feels an emptiness, a void, a lack of purpose, a lack of direction, a confusion. And this feeling of feeling my ancestral origins and realizing my interconnectedness with everything, including my ancestral origins, but also towards everyone alive right now and everything present right now, it filled that. It just, there was no emptiness anymore. It was a feeling of beingness, of presence, and gratitude, eventual gratitude that I am here to be and to engage and to gift and to receive and to be supported by some aspects and be blocked by some aspects and be able to accept the support from others and to surmount the obstacles that appear, that I can pour my attention, my intention, my efforts into this world. It was an honor. An honor and a filling of the emptiness that sometimes is felt. And I felt alive. As I continued in this vision, the music continued to have these tribal voices of someone singing, and there was one time that I allowed my body to not stand up, but at least sit up in the mattress, and I felt like honoring that expression, of honoring that call from the past to remember our origins. And my body just felt compelled to act it out, to act the singing and the call to everyone alive of remember your origins, remember all the life that has transcurred, that has occurred, transpired for you to be here. And so I acted it out for a few minutes, and that felt just powerful. And just when I was thinking about this and acting it out, I matched my eyes with the ceremony leader, and she looked at me, and in a very knowing way, like we had a connection there, and we like, she knew what I was feeling. I felt she knew, and I also could see her in a very peaceful state. And she looked at me, and she saw me, and then she went. Just shh. And I knew what she meant. I knew she meant try to silence even that expression, which was silent. I wasn't singing. I was very silently doing that, but yet there was energy going out, and she asked me to silence into myself and bring the energy into myself, very knowingly. And so I did. I went back and lay down on my mattress. And I continued to hear this music. And the music, as I continued to hear it, visions continued coming to me of even further past, of further pasting of my being. And I began seeing / feeling life in many aspects, like many types of living beings, being born, struggling to survive, many of them dying, very few surviving, but the ones that survive seeking, finding ways to find food and find shelter and find a mate to reproduce and have their children and die, and then their children being able to do the same thing and growing up and reproducing, and some of them surviving, but most of them dying, and again dying, but having born children, and again the children, and again the children, and doing it again and over and over and over and over again. And that cycle, that continuous cycle, it contained within it not only the successes and the fruits of all the children that come up, but also all of the pains and the violence and the suffering and the destruction and death. Continuous violence and death and failure and pain and suffering and pain and suffering over and over and over again. In the plants, in the animals, it was to me like the feeling of, it was very embedded in the feeling of the mother who is giving so much of her life to producing fruits, to giving out into the world. And so many of those efforts fail. So many of those efforts are imbued with pain, with suffering, with not finding support in another, with desperation of trying to find, where can I find support in this life to help my children survive, help the fruit of life continue, and failing over and over and over again. Many of these failures resulting in death, in decay, in failures, over and over and over again. And as I saw and felt this, I could feel that pain, the call of all of those pains, as they seemed to call from the past, from millions and millions and millions of years ago. It felt like all of those pains were crying out in anguish. Those failures and those sufferings still there, still alive, and forgotten, hidden, because no one knows about them, because they die. They die, and life just continues. Only the fruit of it continues, but all those pains and sufferings, all those calls for help, those failures, they felt like they were still there. They were still there in the ether, lost in the annals of time. And so many more failures than successes. And I felt these failures, and I felt like these pains were calling and saying, remember us. Or make it an effort to not be forgotten, to have us remember that they existed. They were there. To not be forgotten. It felt like the pain was saying, do not forget us. Don't let us don't let us dissipate into oblivion. But remember us, someone remember us, like they were calling and calling and calling. And within me, what I felt was visions of plants like growing, bearing fruits, and these fruits falling in the tree, dying, and the fruits in the middle, like some of it surviving, much of it dying, but some of it growing again and again and again and again and again and again. In particular, there was this one image, bright image, that I remember, where it was the image of much soil and like decayed matter, brown, wet, decaying matter with like worm-like being fermented, like soil that was just it's waste. It's being composted naturally, and out from all of that, decayed, like a decayed bed of matter, of life matter, plant matter, there was like this bright, vibrant, lively, like stem of a plant just growing and with bright leaves, alive, super alive, bright green, life, like a young sapling. But it was like shining, the sapling, like out, growing out from the death and decay of its ancestors, growing bright and holy, I would say. Like it was embodying the life that continues through it. It was shining, that plant. And so what I felt was that all of these pains and failures, they were saying, don't forget us. Don't forget us. But they were not saying it. They were crying it out loud. Crying in anguish and desperation and remember. Or the anguish was just there. I felt it as I felt the importance of remembering it. Because otherwise, it remains hidden. And then we do not acknowledge it. And if we do not acknowledge all of these past failures, then I have the feeling that we cannot truly embody the whole of our present if we are not aware of all that happened in the past. If there are parts of our story that is hidden or forgotten, then we cannot yet embody the whole of our present. That is how it felt. That was much of the ceremony, actually. I spent it focused on this vision. A couple of other things happened. After all of that vision, I came back to feeling, oh, I'm in a room with people, yes. And then I also felt the importance of community. Like I was saying, how important it is, how communities interact, and the role that each person takes, and the service, the beauty of the willing service from one to another, from one to the community. And so I felt it, came back into the group, and I looked around and I thought, oh, well, I'm part of this community. Well, what is my role here? How can I contribute? How can I help? And I looked around and I saw some people needing help. There was someone who said, I need a hug right now. And he was right next to me. And so I thought, well, that can be my role. Maybe I can go there and hug him. And then that could be helpful. That can be a contribution. And just as I was considering going there, I turned over to the leaders of the ceremony, and I could see that one of them immediately stood up and went there directly. And I knew that I could be there before him if I wanted to. But then I realized, no, I don't. That's not my role. If I were to decide to force my role of contribution into the community by going there before him, then I would be revoking. I would be taking away his privilege of contribution. He has a role. The leader, he had a role to play, and that was his role of support to the participants. And so all in an instant, I just realized, oh, wait, no, I can contribute. And then, oh, someone is contributing. Oh, wait, no, that's his role. I don't want to take away his role. He has a role, I have a role. My role right now is to feel, to participate for my own insight. His role is to support. There he goes. And then, of course, it was just what I felt in a moment. But I do feel that concept can be extended to, well, our everyday lives, to the way that we behave in our communities. Because sometimes it's true, sometimes a community comes into imbalance by people, by some members attempting to evade a role, to reject some role or responsibility in the community, whether explicit or implied. But also a community can come into imbalance by some members attempting to take over the role or contribution of another member, or merely of interfering with it. And sometimes that's not as well understood or not as noticed, because it would feel that if I am offering a contribution and I contribute something extra into the community, then that's a good thing, because I care more, because, oh, I did more than the others, so that's good. When in fact, in a community, a key to a community's being stable is that it remains in balance. And for there to be balance, the members must have roles and contributions that fit to the people and that are somewhat stable, and that there's a certain agreement between the members for these contributions to be of a certain manner. And when they block each other, when they interfere with each other, there's friction. And it's important to remember that. It's not just a matter of doing more or of measuring larger fruits, whether at the member or at the community level, but rather to understand one's own role and one's own contribution within a group, and to acknowledge it, to respect it, to embody it, to manifest it gracefully and correctly, and in accordance and in awareness with the roles and contributions of everyone around us, where of course, in a society, by balance, I don't mean a static balance, a static equilibrium where everything is just in the same way, and then if you remove a member, then things start to like fall away in that direction. But rather, it's a very dynamic balance, just like life. And that's where that aspect of awareness is key. Awareness of my own implied roles and contributions in this society, explicit, implicit, of what everyone is expecting from each other, or of what the state of what of what the personality of each member is like, of what awareness of what is missing, of what is in lack, what is in excess in the community. Where can I create a contribution? If there's a lack of somewhere, can I place another flow there? Must it be me that actually puts that flow, or perhaps I can just put out the idea so that someone can do it? Just awareness and eagerness, and not eagerness, that awareness and willingness to contribute, to experiment, and to allow change. All of this is what I'm saying, are just my personal conclusions about that, but it felt important to say, because that is what I felt when this event happened to me, where I thought that I could contribute by hugging someone, but then I realized that no, that is already filled out. Someone else can do it. Someone else wants to do it. Whew. That was most of my experience from the 8th ayahuasca ceremony that I took on November 11th, 2023. I guess that's it. That is it. Goodbye for now.